Hey there. Let's talk about Victorinox 100-year anniversary special editions. And before I get into what's on the table there, let me just say that there were three different releases Victorinox did surrounding some 100th year period in the company's history. The first one was released in 1984 to celebrate or commemorate the 100th year anniversary of the company's founding in 1884. And this knife is part of that run. Then there was another run in 1991. It was the Victorinox Centennial Edition, and it was 100 years since they first supplied knives to the Swiss Army, the first Swiss soldier knife in 1891. Then there was a third run in 1997, and that 100th anniversary was of the Swiss Army knife, or the officers and sports knife that was started in 1897. So you can see that there are a lot of different limited editions based on different 100-year periods. There's also 125-year anniversary knives, 115-year anniversary knives. Victorinox is a marketing machine, and they do this to sell knives, obviously. But they also know that there's a big collector community surrounding Victorinox knives, and this is something nice to do for them. I mean, these are knives that are special enough in a way to be a little different. They are in more limited numbers, although they're easy to get. And so yeah, there's something a little nice to build a collection around or just to have. Okay, so in 1984, about 33 years ago, Victorinox celebrated its 100th company anniversary. They put out a book, and they put out 4 different knives. They put out a classic, a tourist, a small size Tinker, the 84mm model, that's what this is, and a Champion Plus. I actually have production numbers for the knives that they put out that year, and these come to me secondhand, but I don't have any reason not to believe them. On multitool.org's forum, a user that goes by the user ID of SAAM007, he stated that he had actually contacted Victorinox and was able to get production numbers for all these different series I just talked about. But in this particular series, they did 41,300 of the classics. They did 12,800 of the tourists. They did 9,800 of this small size Tinker. And they did 15,640 of the Champion Plus, according to this person who says he contacted Victorinox. So they all came in a presentation box that looked pretty much the same, just a different size, of course. They all had the same scales, and all of them had a serial number except for the classic. So this is the Tinker, and it looks like that kind of classic box from 1984, but it's got a different logo or symbol here, and that's repeated on the scale of the knife in a stainless steel inlay. So I'll talk about that when we look at the knife. So here's the knife in a cradle. And let me just get it out. So yeah, you can see the inlay there. And first of all, that's quite elaborate. And number two, that represents some craftsmanship, because I don't know exactly what Victorinox's process is, but it's got to be pretty hard to stamp a thin piece of stainless steel into a design like that, then embed it in plastic, somehow embed it or pin it to this plastic scale, make it absolutely smooth, and so it'll stay in there. So I don't know how they do that. It's obviously very similar to how they do their shields, but pretty impressive, I think. So let me talk about what we have there. Of course, you've got the dates, 1884 and 1984, and the more modern wording there, Victorinox. But in the middle, it looks kind of like an eagle or something, right, with the Swiss Alps in the background. It's actually a dove with an olive branch in its mouth. That's a kind of a universal symbol for peace. In the full-blown logo, it's actually on a knife. And somewhere in there it also says Swiss quality or Victorinox, I can't remember. But this is the logo that Victorinox actually started using in 1926. So I find it kind of curious that it's on a knife that's commemorating, the 1884 anniversary. However, the company didn't really have like a graphic until this time. They just used the words, Elsener, Swiss, things like that. So that's really their first logo, I guess you could say. Now over here on the left, you can see it's an image of a man, a smith, with a hammer and anvil. He's forging a sword or knife blade or something, right? This is actually from a fresco that was over the entrance of their 1943 factory in Ebach. And over the door on that factory, they've got this fresco, and then carved in stone next to it in Latin the words, "The Lord shall provide." So apparently the Elsner family have been devout Christians for many years. And then down here you have the logo that they were using around 1984. It's just a modern version of a Swiss Army knife. To me it kind of looks like a, what is that, a Huntsman maybe? Scissors and a saw and the rest of the tools. So that's really what makes this knife different. Pretty much otherwise it's kind of like a small tinker from that era. It's got one other feature I'll show you, but opening tools, pretty much the same. You've got no 90-degree stop on the screwdriver back then. At that time they were using the spear point small blade. The large blade is going to have, the logo, the tang stamp they were using back then. Victorinox, Switzerland, stainless, Rost, Fry, and then the Officier Swiss with the crossbow and the small cross. But on the back you start seeing some, differences. First of all, there's the sharpened reamer, no sewing eye back then, pre-85, right? And then Tinker's got a Phillips, not a corkscrew. It is a rounded, not a flat-sided Phillips. However, it does have the split in the end for the can key. Some people call it the spam key. There it is. And if you don't know what that is, it's pretty cool. I remember when I was a kid, a lot of potted meat, like spam, came in a can, and it had a little slotted key stuck to the lid in case you didn't have a can opener, and there was a little metal band around the edge of the can, and you could work your way around the can and strip off that metal band, and then the can would separate. So Victorinox actually started splitting at this time at least some of their Phillips drivers to be able to fulfill that function. And to me, again, that's just a mark of craftsmanship. Just a attention to detail, added expense. Just kind of showing off, I guess, what they could do. Here on the aluminum liner, you see there is a serial number, and this one is 21,194. And remember earlier I said that the production numbers I had for this Tinker were 9,800. So what gives? I don't know exactly. I'm just thinking maybe they consecutively numbered all these knives in this series. The Classic, the Tourist, the Tinker, the Champion, and that was a lot of knives. It does have a key ring. At that point in time, the key ring was attached to a separate spacer on the back and not to a lug on the back spring. And of course then you've got the tweezers and the toothpick. Yeah, so that's probably the oldest series to commemorate some 100-year period for Victorinox. And the Tinker was the least produced of the four that they did in 1984. And I just think it's a really nice knife. This one's pristine and in the box. Hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.